So RStudio will be a platform for data analysis or science projects. So not only does it provide us an editor, but also allows us to create and edit our scripts, right? But also it provides us many other useful tools. Okay, so in this video, we'll go over some of the basics, but first make sure you open or start RStudio and not R. Okay, so make sure you open RStudio and not R. Okay, so the first time you open RStudio, you'll see three panes, right? The left pane is what we refer to as the R console. In fact, here you can see that the version of R we installed is called Taking Off Again. These are free open source software. Okay, and then on the right here, you could see we have what we call the environment and history pane, right? While at the bottom here, we have 5 tabs, right? We have files, plots, packages, help, viewer, presentation, and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll quickly look at each one of those. But before we continue, recall our car analogy. Let me pull it up here. So in this car analogy, you know, in real life, we don't interact with it directly with the engine, right? But rather we interact with some of the components, elements, right, on the car's dashboard, you know, especially now in the era of electric vehicles, right? This just to provide you some convenience, right, to leverage on the computation. Okay, so again, here it's the same thing. We don't we actually don't directly interact with R. Well, we have this IDE to allow us to have an interface to R. In fact, RStudio is an integrated development environment, short for IDE for R, right? We have used another programming language. You might have used already an IDE, okay? So this IDE helps you as a user to effectively use R by making things much easier, right? In fact, RStudio here, we're gonna see as we go along, allows you, or rather includes features like syntax highlighting. We have code completion, and sometimes it allows you smart indentation, right? And not only that, if you're gonna be collaborating with other individuals, you know, it provides you multiple working directories and projects, right? So I'll give you different workspaces via browser. You can also see, you know, through a viewer. Okay, you can see plots here. You can render some plots. It allows you to zoom into your plots or images, right? You can import, export, and also it has an integrated help function here. You could literally search for anything here. So it has a very well documented documentation. For example, you can search using this command history. Okay, so let's look at each one of these. So we have the console here. So the console here is where you type your command and see the output. So for example, I could just say 1 plus 1, right? And I'm able to immediately see the output in my console, right? So in fact, this is how you, if you interact directly with R, this is what you'll be seeing. You know, it'll be just a CLI, you know, command line interface, right? The next thing in the upper right hand corner here, we have the workspace environment pane, right? So what that means is that so the environment tab here, so let's start with the environment tab here. It tells you what objects we have in R, okay? What will exist in memory, okay? What will be loaded in once we kind of read it in our script editor, okay? The history tab here as well will contain everything that you type in your script, what is saved, right? Again, here, this is very useful for debugging your code, especially if you don't rely too much on your script, right? And if you want to delete this, you can actually use this brush here to delete the history, okay? So you can use that sparingly. Then at the bottom here, right-hand corner, You can see we have several tabs. We have the file. So files here will just show you the directory structure in your computer. And then we have the viewer here. Is where you can view your data and our objects. We have the help here. We'll see more about this later. I'll just show you some help documentation for our commands. So for example, if I wanted to search something like, let's say square root, right? You could actually type there square root, maybe a function like square root like that, and it will pull up and you can read more about it. And then plots here, we have a tab for plots, when basically it shows the plots generated in our session, right? You can see current and previous plots. You can save, you can export into PDF or image, and so on and so forth. And then lastly here, we have packages, right? This provides us a list of all installed packages. If I want to install, I just click on that and I can search for a package here. So for example, I could search for ggplot. And the good thing, this is the auto completion. So I can pick, if it exists in our repository at the CRAN, I can just pick that and install. Okay. All right. And lastly here, so our fourth panel. So if I click here, automatically open for us an RScript, right? But I want to show you how to open a new script. So you go here, file, new file. You can see all these are the different extensions or different files that are supported by RStudio, from SQL, text file, HTML, CSS, notebook, R Markdown, but we are interested in this. So click on that. It will be the same thing, right? Again, so this is your script editor, right? So go ahead. Let's go ahead and we can save this. So the first thing you want to do is to save it. So you can click this icon. You can go here and click save as, right? So once you click save as, you can give it, it's important to give it a name, right? So it will ask you, the first time it'll ask you to save it. So a good convention is to use a descriptive name, probably lowercase, don't use spaces, all right? Only hyphens, right? To separate the words, okay? So in your case here, maybe followed by a suffix, right? So in your case here, you could just say, for example, my first script, for example, right? And remember, our script automatically, it will be saved in a .r. So once we save that, so make sure you select where you want to save it. So for me, I'll just put it in my desktop, for example, click on save, right? But make sure you create a folder where you want to save your scripts, okay? So you can see here, this is a .r extension, okay? So another thing we can do here really quick, we can change the configuration here, right? In fact, here we can go ahead and we can do 1+1, for example. And so how do we run this? We can either click here, run, or we can, if you're using Windows, that will be Control Enter, or if you're using Mac, that will be Command Enter, right? And then you can see automatically that we can see our output in the console, right? And I can clear the output in the console here. If you're using, just use your keyboard command and Control L. Okay. All right. So another thing I wanted to quickly show you here is that you can rearrange the panes, the different windows here. So I could go here, click on Tools, Global Options, right? So click on that. The first thing you can see here, by default, you can choose your default working directory. We'll have another video. We'll see how to do that. But you will see that for the most part, you can it's highly recommended that you uncheck this box. I think yours will be which says, where is it? Saves workspace to.r data on exit, right? So what you need to do here is you need to uncheck that, okay? So once you uncheck that, because sometimes, it just brings confusion, especially when you start sharing code with colleagues or friends and all that. Every time it will assume that, you're referencing to the R data file, right? So make sure you uncheck that. Okay. So you could go to appearance here. You can change the appearance of your script editor. So for now, I'll just keep it Chrome, but go ahead. You can change it to maybe all these different features available to us. So for purposes of this video, probably I'll change it to something like pastel, right? Click on apply. You can see everything changes to that. Or I can change it to this, for example. Okay. So I'll just return it back to Chrome and apply. Okay. So for the pane layout, this is where you can make the changes. So I usually like making this my environment down here, and then keep here as a console, then here file plots. So when I apply here, notice this part here will come down here and the console will go up here. So click on apply and okay, you'll see now I've been able to change the configuration there. Okay. So that's it. And lastly here, you can always access so it's important to access some of these keyboard shortcuts, right? When you click on that, you'll be presented with all these keyboard shortcuts. So take some time to figure out some of the keyboard shortcuts you can use. And once you're done, you just click out here. And then also we have what we call cheat sheets, right? You can see here, we have one here called RStudio. The IDE cheat sheet just provides us a summary, right? But if you want to browse all this, so click here, it will open up a new window, right? You can see these are just PDF. You click on it, it will download on your computer. And you can probably start with the one for IDE. RStudio IDE will give you a summary of all the different tips and tricks that you can actually use. Okay. Yeah, and that actually wraps up our intro to RStudio. All right. Thank you.